On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, our guest is Adrian O'Neal, the director of the Johnston County Parks and Open Space Program. This is Adrian's second visit to the Best of Johnston County podcast. He was originally with us in January of 2024. On this week's episode, we got him to update us on the regional park for Johnston County, located right here in the Cleveland community, and what's going on with Phase 1, which when it is completed will include pickleball, a parking lot, some turn lanes, and now a picnic shelter, which is newly added to Phase 1. We also talked to Adrian a little bit about the other projects his department is working on, the fact that they're getting ready to add 4 new positions in the next 12 months, and more work on the Mountains to the Sea Trail and how that is developing in our county. So if you're interested in parks, including, we talk a little bit about the Friends of the Park group that's out there that's doing great work here. This is a good podcast to listen to. So if you're interested in parks, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have the County Parks and Rec Director, Adrian O'Neal. He's back to talk to us about what's currently going on with the Cleveland Community Park, the Mountains to the Sea Trail. Now, since he came here 18 months ago, he's one of our very first guests. He now has a much bigger budget, a much larger staff, and has a lot of new ideas for Parks and Rec in Johnston County that we're going to talk to him about today. So I think this is going to be a really good podcast. I'm really looking forward to it, and we're going to all learn a lot about what's going on with parks in Johnston County. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're seeing, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, or any of the other Best of Johnston County social media channels. The Best Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for almost 2 years. So please go back and listen to previous episodes, which includes most of the Johnston County commissioners, Congressman Brad Knott, and a whole cadre of small business owners. And we recently had Purnell Chandler of Call Purnell HVAC in Selma and Activate Selma. So if Johnston County is your home and you love Johnston County, this is the podcast for you. Welcome, Adrian.
Good morning.
I appreciate you coming back. You are the first encore guest of the Best of Johnston County podcast. You were one of the first 10 guests when I had this idea to have a podcast, and you were a guinea pig and you were willing to come on and meet with us. And it's still, to this day, one of the episodes, we're in the 90s now of episodes that I get the most questions about, because everybody wants to know about parks. And because you were on here, they think I have the answer. And I don't have the answers, but it is what it is. So I thought, well, I'm going to have him come back, because literally I am asked about you and that episode at least once a month. Wow. And it's been literally almost 2 years. So it's something else. So anyway, so for all those who listened to the episode that we did in January of 2024, what's your name? What do you do?
I'm Adrian O'Neal, and I'm the Parks and Open Space Director for Johnston County. Okay. And the reason I put that out there is because Parks and Open Space is a little different from Parks and Rec.
Okay.
We build the spaces that people play in, but we actually depend on a lot of other groups to help us out with the programming that happens in the spaces. Before I came to this job, I actually worked with North Carolina State Parks for 27 years. And in a whole range of jobs, all the way from taking tickets when people came into Jordan Lake, all the way up to being one of the deputy directors in charge of in charge of the operations in the field. And I do miss the people of state parks, but I enjoy working in Johnston County, and there's a lot of benefits to working in Johnston County, one of the best places to work in the county government. And we're really excited about what we've got going on. I know that a lot of people think that things are not happening fast enough.
Sign me up. I don't think things are happening fast enough. I constantly give you hell, and Rick Hester, the county manager who was on this podcast a few weeks ago, giving him hell. Butch Lauder, Mr. Chairman. I mean, it is constant from me,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
Well,
I know these things take time, but good gracious.
Yeah, when you're going from zero to trying to get to what we've got in the counties around us, and we don't want to be like the counties around us. We want to be Johnston County, but we want to have the same level of facilities that they have, and it does take a long time. It does take a lot of money. Quite frequently in the commissioners' meetings, I tell them that, we don't build parks with farmers in the wintertime anymore, and they cost a lot of money. And they are very receptive to that, honestly. They have given us an increase in our budget this past year, which we're going to add a few things that, I'm going to say it again. I think I said it last time I was here. We've got some irons in the fire, and right now we're on the precipice of opening 5 different facilities within the next 24 months. One of those being the regional park. One of those,
that's the Cleveland Park.
The regional park at Cleveland, yes, sir. And the reason we call it regional park, we look at a lot of numbers. One of the data points we use is called placer. And in that placer data, we can look, and thankfully GCAA has been there a long time, and that county property that GCAA uses. And we can look at that property and see how many visits there's been to GCAA. Last year, there was 27,000 visits to GCAA.
At least.
Well, that's what's on there.
Yeah, I think it's more than that, but at least that many.
And we can, through heat maps, we can tell where those people came from. And when we look at the visitation to GCAA, yes, there's a lot that's in the Cleveland and the Clayton area. But if you spread out, you see visitation all the way up and down the East Coast, all the way into the other side of North Carolina. It's not as heavy as it is right around that area, but there's a lot of use for GCAA, and that's why we call it a regional park.
No, I don't doubt, and it's going to be for the region. And when it's finally done, it's going to be extremely nice. It's going to have ball fields, it's going to have basketball courts, it's going to have a fishing pond, it's going to have an amphitheater, it's going to have walking trails. But I don't know that it will be done before my grandchildren are born. I'm being honest. Like I have told everybody since the very first meeting that I was on when Rick Hester and I called the lady that had the land to see what she'd be willing to do to see if we could do this. I was there at the very beginning. I knew then, and my kids were little then, I knew then that even if we could get the land, which we ultimately did, that it would not be for my kids, it would be for my grandchildren. And I still believe that. Now, I know you're trying to make progress and you're doing what you can, but I don't believe Cleveland gets $30 to $50 million to build this park in the next 15 years. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe it.
It is a heavy lift, there's no doubt. And we've worked with a lot of different sources. We've worked with federal grants, we've worked with state grants. We've got a state grant right now. The first phase with the last estimate or the last bids came in and $4.4 million. And just to show you how much things cost now, that's parking area roads, that's a pickleball court or double pickleball court, it's a basketball court, a picnic shelter, a fishing pond, and all the parking to go with it. And when you always have things pop up that you weren't expecting when you start construction. One of the things that has popped up on this particular project is we obviously picked the only site in Johnston County that doesn't have any clay. And we need clay to make a fishing pond because if you don't have clay, the water doesn't stay in the pond. So that's one of the increases that happen. We've got to have clay trucked in so that they can put a liner in the pond. We also have run into a couple of issues with DOT because they said, hey, you're going to have they trust us, Jonathan. They said one day you're going to have a big park here and you're going to need 2 turning lanes. You're going to need a turn lane coming out, turn lane going in.
I think that's absolutely right.
And so they're making us put them in right off the bat. So there's things like that. And then, we added a picnic shelter because in the first phase because of the fact we wanted people to be able to have some shade out there. We don't want people getting heat stroke in our first county park. And so we added that in. But those little things add up. And, we were projecting it to be about $3.3 million. It's bumped up to about 4.4 because of being delayed by that. And, some of these grants, you can't actually start construction until you get the grant. So that pushes us back. And, some of those things cost. But when you're going after money to build something, you have to sometimes wait on those.
Well, I mean, so we talked about phase one when you were here in January of 24. Mm-hmm. We're recording this now in the middle of August of 25. This episode will probably run maybe October of 25 when it comes out. I mean, we're still talking about phase one. And you said that was a 36-month process in January of 24. So we're in the middle of that time frame. But I think that a lot of us thought we would see the parking lot and some actual movement out there starting at the beginning of this summer, and that didn't happen. And so now it goes back to all of us thinking this isn't going to happen.
Right. And I'm trying to remember in 2024, because we've had two iterations. We had a temporary facility at one time that we were going to start over there so we could get things on the ground. And then we said, well, okay, we've got money to go ahead and start design work. And, in that case, we didn't want to waste $150, $200, $300, $400,000 on putting a parking lot in where we might not need a parking lot when all the design was finished. So that was one thing that set us back. And then I think when I was here last time, we were actually in the middle of working with Stewart, which was the original designers. Correct. And they looked at everything to even the older part that GCAA is using now. And we looked at the redesign on that because we didn't want to duplicate what was happening at GCAA over at the new section, because they're going to work together. They're going to work hand in hand. And in that, things just, when you start doing stuff, it starts expanding. And,
I mean, I understand that. And I mean, and look, you've had several meetings at the fire department out here. I've attended those. I mean, you and your staff have done a great job trying to educate the public, but there's still not a dedicated funding source to build this all the way out. Yes, we can have, I'm happy that we're going to get a couple pickleball courts and a picnic shelter, and we're going to be able to start getting some use out of it. But I mean, ultimately, the price tag was somewhere between $30 and $50 million by the time you develop that park, and then you completely redo the original GCA location. You get a new gym, you reconfigure the fields that are there, you put in some additional parking. I mean, there was even talk maybe the community college would abandon that building and we could have that land. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But I mean, it's just kind of, sort of a hodgepodge. But I mean, I am happy to hear that there's going to be something that we can actually use soon, I guess. I mean, I guess this, if your 36 months was right, this project will be done in the next 18 months. So by January of 27, we'll have the pickleball, we'll have the fishing court, we'll have the basketball court, and we'll have a parking lot.
And a picnic shelter. And right now we've got somewhere around $3.3 million in our account through grants and things such as that. I won't say in our accounts because a lot of these grants, the way they work, the county pays for them first and we get reimbursed. But we've got that much in the pot. And right now we're kind of looking at how we're going to get that last $900,000 to make it over the top. So that's where we're at, and it's... well,
can you start if you don't have the $900,000?
No, because a contractor wants to know that you got it all. So we've got to at least have a commitment of that much money.
Well, the commissioners have they have like $50 million in a fund balance. Well, just saying.
And I will say the commissioner.
You're not a commissioner, but I'm just saying.
The commissioners have been very good to us this year. And we do have other projects. And, believe it or not, we've got, like I said, 5 different projects that could come online within the next 24 to 36 months. One of those is a 313-acre park down at Four Oaks, which is part of a project that we're working on with Triangle Land Conservancy. And it will protect the Neuse River. It will protect Black Creek, or a portion of Black Creek. And it's going to provide some much needed office space for us to be able to get out of the land use center. We've been in the land use center with the planning program for the last 5.5 years. And they need space to be able to add to their staff and do the things they need to do. And we need space to be able to add to our staff and keep up these things that we're putting online. That area will have trails. It's an old dairy farm, and we're excited about getting it. It's a very unique spot. We've also got the trail behind new Wilson Mills High School that we'll be putting into place. And a lot of these things that we're working on are through grant funds, a lot of federal grants, a lot of highway grants, a lot of state grant funding. We've got a boat ramp that we're working on near Clayton, 42 and the Neuse River. And obviously we've got the regional park. So there are a lot of different projects going on. We try to keep those juggling all the time. And we've, right now there's a staff of 2. We are going to add 4 positions later this year. We've got a office manager that we'll have coming in that will definitely help us out with paperwork and keeping everything on track. We have a project manager that will help us out when we get the project going for the regional park. There's going to be a lot of day-to-day activity that has to be mapped and kept up. And that's what that position will do, and as well as some of the other projects. And then we've got 2, what I call general utility workers that are part-time, and they're going to help us keep up the new park it's at the end of Devil's Racetrack pretty much. Keep up that and the regional park. When we get it online, they'll go over there and do daily maintenance, daily sweeps on it, make sure everything's okay, nothing's been broken and stuff like that. So we've got a lot on our plates, and the commissioners were very good at upping our budget so we could have equipment for those things and have the staff that we've got coming in and be able to meet the needs we've got with those new facilities. And over the years we've also worked, and these are kind of some of those things that don't get seen as much, but we've also worked with schools when they put new facilities in place to try to co-locate potential park properties beside those. We did one with the Thanksgiving school, obviously with the Wilson Mills High School, middle school that's going to go in there. So some of those things are coming along, maybe not as fast as we want them to all the time, but they are coming along.
Well, and I know, you can't say this, you're a county employee, but and we've asked the commissioners that have been through here on this podcast since you've been on, and and I think they're committed to it. You know what I mean? But I don't know, and you're not going to be able to answer this, but I don't know that the Cleveland Park at its full capacity, a true regional park like you see in Wake County, which is the design you have from Stewart, it is absolutely phenomenal. I'll put it up against any park anywhere in North Carolina if it gets built, is going to probably need a dedicated funding source. And the commissioners are going to have to figure out a way to do that. And they've got a couple of options. They can create a Parks and Rec. They can take some of the general tax fund. I think they just cut our rate to 52 cents. And they could say, okay, we're going to take a certain amount, 1 or 2 cents worth of property tax we collect from the entire county, and we're going to give this to Parks and Rec, and we're going to build parks with it, and we're going to do, not rec, you don't do programs, but anyway, parks and open spaces, and this will allow us to build these parks where we're not relying on grants and outside money to do it. Or they can sort of go with a localized, it's almost like a service district tax, almost like your fire district, and they could say 3 or 4 cents on the 100, and that would be allotted to Cleveland to be able to build this regional park. And they almost did that before you got here in 2018, 2019. They came up 1 vote short of the commissioners. I think it was a 4-3 vote. And if they'd have done that, we'd have had the park by now. But then that would have a board that would oversee it, just like you have a fire board that oversees the fire department. And then that would allow that board to go and borrow money from local government commission and build the park. Short of that, the only other way to get $30 to $50 million to completely build this park out would be through a bond, like they run school bonds and stuff like that. And the commissioners have not run a parks bond since like 2010, I believe. It's been a very long time. And I've not heard any of them say that that's what they intend to do anytime soon, because they've been building schools, but they're starting to get caught up on schools. So who knows? But they also now have to do a $300 million complex for the county government offices, DSS, county tax office, and stuff like that out there by the new jail outside of Smithfield. So that's all in the background here of what the commissioners are having to face while I sit here and complain as to why we don't have this regional park yet. But that's okay. That's what citizens do to their government. They complain, but there are limited resources. But I got to admit, and I got to give Patrick Harris and Butch Lauder a ton of credit. Like, before they got on there, they were both elected in 2018. We didn't have any of this. We didn't have your position. We didn't have an open space coordinator. We had nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think the two of them and a couple of the previous commissioners, I think maybe Chad Stewart was there, like, they said, okay, we're going to do this, and it's sort of evolving. Maybe not evolving as fast as I would like to see, right, but at least it's evolving and you're still here. But anyway.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
So let's talk a little bit about, what would be the funding for the Four Oaks? I mean, that's 300 acres. That's a lot bigger than the regional park in Cleveland, which is 80 acres.
Well, that funding came through state grants, federal grants, and that was attributed to TLC. TLC is one of the best things we do. The county commissioners do put some money in TLC every year.
What is TLC?
Triangle Land Conservancy. And they work in Wake County, they work in Johnston County, and a couple other counties, but Johnston's the only one we're really worried about. But they're doing great things in Johnston County to maintain open space. They do a lot to protect our rivers and streams throughout the county, make sure they're clean and don't get polluted. And a lot of times what they're doing is buying buffer property or getting easements, doing natural resource easements along the buffer properties. And basically every dollar we let them use, they turn it into 10.
Well,
so
that's great. That's
deal.
great. Yeah, I know about them and all the good work they're doing. We'll make sure we made that clear to the listeners that maybe not have heard of them. So another question I get, we talked about it when you were here in January 24, the Mountains of Sea Trail. Mm-hmm. Once again, that is a generational type project that will be going on for a very long time. Mm-hmm. What is the status of it in Johnston County now? What progress is being made towards mainly getting it connected between Clayton and Smithfield? I get a lot of questions about that. Yeah. So what's going on with that?
Well, there's some semantics there too. You know, we always look at the way things are done, but officially the Mountains of Sea Trail is a complete path that you can take from one end of the state to the other.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But a lot of it is roadside.
Oh, okay.
And the goal is for it to be off the road. And the reason for that is because it's much safer when it's off the road. So we are still working on that. And the piece of property behind Wilson Middle School is one of the big links. We got a 2-mile section there that we'll be adding in. And in Johnston County, from the Johnston County line all the way to Smithfield, the Mountains of Sea Trail coexist with East Coast Greenway. So along that section, we're really building greenway, not just trail.
Okay.
The Mountains of Sea Trail, it was generally conceived as a footpath. It was not conceived as a greenway that would be 10 feet wide and paved and like what you see around much of Clayton. But in that section, we have to use those East Coast Greenway standards because they're more stringent. And it costs us more. You know, a paved greenway, when you start looking at it, is right now, hopefully the cost will go down a little bit. I know that doesn't happen much, but in this case, maybe it will. A paved mile of greenway is about $2 million.
Jeez.
Which is I beat the engineers up all the time about it. You can ask the guys from McAdams, you can ask the guys from Stewart, you can ask any ones that I've talked to, because I do talk to them. You know, a regular country road is about $3 million for a mile of country road. And that's a 2-lane, 12-foot wide lanes, like I said, about $3 million a mile. And I tell them, I only need half of that. So my greenway should only cost $1.5 million a mile at the very most. Right. So, but they kind of laugh and then turn away and probably talk dirty about me behind my back. But anyway, if we don't push them to bring the cost down, then I wouldn't be doing my job.
Right. So have we added any greenway in the last 18 months?
No, we have not.
Okay.
But the first piece that we add will be that behind Wilson Middle School.
Okay. I got you. And when will that be completed?
Right now, we have just hired a designer for it. I know it sounds crazy that you have to hire a designer to build a path, but everything that we do in or near any wetlands has a lot of permitting that it has to go through, and that is in and near wetlands along the river. So we'll have to make sure that we do it correctly. And the other thing is we want it built in a resilient manner, so we're not having to rebuild it every 2 to 3 years when we have a hurricane or flood.
So realistically, when would Clayton and Smithfield be connected by a greenway? Or that's just, well, there's no way to know.
There's no way to know because there's a lot of landowners between Smithfield and Clayton, and we have to have willing landowners. For a state trail, you cannot use eminent domain.
Well, that was my next question. You can't just condemn it.
You can't just condemn it because a state trail cannot be dedicated if the land that is used to build it is condemned land.
Okay.
So, and that's the way we want it, because we want cooperative neighbors, and we don't want a stigma put on a piece of trail that people are going to use.
Right. I got you. And then the funding that you're getting for the Mountain Sea Trail, I mean, this 2 miles, I guess, behind the new Wilson Mills High School is going to cost $4 million. Where's that funding coming from?
That was creative funding that actually has come through carbon reduction grant.
Okay.
And, there's a certain amount of money that the federal government puts forward, and I don't know if they'll ever do it again, but they put forth this money to not take cars off the road, but to give alternatives to using a car to get from point A to point B.
Okay.
And we were able to capitalize on that and get that grant for that piece of trail.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Yeah. So what else? I know we could talk for hours and hours, and I've at least stopped calling you and talking to you for hours and hours over the last few months, which I'm sure you appreciate. But what else can the citizens in Johnston County be looking forward to over the next 12 to 18 months from your department?
Well, one of the big things that I think has come about since the last time we talked is we have a friends group in Johnston County, Friends of Parks and Arts,
right,
in Johnston County. And we had a donor that donated $50,000 over the course of 2 years for projects. And, that's one of the things, a friends group or a support group like that, they can do a lot of things with just manpower. But when you start getting a little money involved, it helps you out tremendously. One of the things that they're working on right now is adding AEDs to some of the areas in the county that have recreational events that don't have those AEDs. I think right now they've got 7 requests for AEDs, and they're looking to fund those. And that hopefully will save lives and make people more comfortable about coming out to an event. Because if you've got a grandparent or even a young person that has something going on with their heart and they don't know whether they're going to be able to get help if they go to a place like that, it's very scary for them.
Yeah, I know. And we had that debate when I was on the board of GCAA about buying one, having it, what liability does it create by having it, not having anybody trained on how to use it, and then who's going to get trained on how to use it. There's always going to be somebody present that knows how to use it. And we're talking about AEDs. We're talking about the life things, better with like the guns that they sort of shock you back with, the sort of old school,
automated electronic defibrillator.
Right. They sort of put the things on you if you have a heart attack and they go chiplonk, something like that. But anyway, well, I mean, I think that's great. And that friends group has done several trash pickup events, sort of clean the county, clean the trails. I know they've been involved with that, and a lot of good people. I know Denton Lee's been involved with that, and I'm glad they exist, and hopefully their numbers will continue to grow. Because I think they're doing a lot of the right things. They're also advocates to the commissioners, as you are and I am, for additional funding and additional spaces and stuff like that. So anyway, I know you live in Wayne County, but the last question we always ask people on this podcast: what do you love most about Johnston County?
It's still got to be the people that are here. Even though I live in Wayne County, I grew up in Harnett County, which is right next door. And my father grew up in Johnston County. And it's great to bring him through the county because he can tell me what he remembers when he was young. And it's changed a lot most definitely. But there are still things, he's fixing to be 80 years old, and there's still things he recognizes when he goes to the county, and that, he's happy to tell me about, and certainly like working in a place where he grew up.
Well, that's great. No, it's been great, and we were very fortunate. And everybody from Butch Lawler to Rick Hester, County Manager, Commissioner Chairman, very fortunate you took this job and have stayed with this job. I mean, the thought that we didn't have a department and we got the state director to retire and come start one for us was a big get for us. And I am very appreciative of what you've done and that you're sticking with us and working through this. I mean, it's like baby steps, right? Like we didn't have this. Like it's baby steps for the citizens, for the commissioners, for the county manager, and it's going well. Of course, we all want it to go faster. The commissioners, once again, as I said earlier, have lots and lots of things on their plate, from schools to they just got to pay for this new jail. They need a complex. It's going to cost $300 million. Like there's a lot, but I do think that the parks will be coming as we go. It may not as fast as I would like to see it, but I do think that this group, now who knows, will be elected in the future, is committed to doing it, and we're starting to see that progress, even if it might not be as fast as some of us would like to see. So anyway, well, we'd like to thank Adrian O'Neal for being our guest on this week's episode of the Best Johnston County Podcast. As we mentioned earlier, please like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're seeing it, whether on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, or any of the other social media channels, the Best Johnston County Podcast. Also, give us a 5-star review down below. It'll help us expand our reach to reach more of Johnston County citizens so they would know about this podcast and why I and Adrian O'Neal love Johnston County so much. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.